In the pantheon of rock music history, the grunge movement is often associated with iconic figures like Kurt Cobain, Eddie Vedder, and Chris Cornell. However, there exists a lesser-known yet profoundly influential figure whose contributions predate and arguably helped shape the genre. Tina Bell, the frontwoman of the Seattle band Bam Bam, was an African-American vocalist who played a critical role in the development of grunge music. Despite her significant contributions, Tina's story has largely remained in the shadows, overshadowed by the more famous acts that followed. Let's chat about it.
Yeah, I walk with the twirl, and I've flown all over the world. Take cities on my tape and clouds, dress with the life of a SoCal girl. Yeah, I do what I like. Don't be mad, you ain't doing it right. Call me a celebrity.
Tina Bell was born on February 5, 1957 in Seattle, Washington, third of 10 children, and the oldest daughter. Tina was a part of her church choir and took part in their joint theater production with the Langston Hughes Performing Arts Institute. Tina was also studying drama at Washington State University. Her role was to sing a French song, but she needed a language tutor. That's when she met Tommy Martin, who would become her boyfriend and bandmate in later years. The couple got married in 1979 and welcomed their son TJ in the same year. Tommy had already been a part of a few punk bands in the past, but was ready to start his own band where he was in charge of creative direction. In 1983, the couple co-founded a band called Bam Bam, an acronym that combined the three words Bell and Martin. After placing an ad in a local Seattle newspaper seeking more bandmates, they recruited bassist Scotty Ledgerwood and drummer Matt Cameron, who would later join Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and was replaced by Tom Hendrickson. The band would spend most days writing and composing music at the Martin residence, and they performed their first show on October 15 that year with Tina as lead vocalist. Bam Bam emerged from the Seattle music scene at a time when a new sound was beginning to take shape. The band's music, categorized by heavy guitar riffs, pounding drums, mixed with Tina's raw, unpolished, and emotionally intense vocals, would later become known as grunge.
Baby, I will last. It's hard to tell. Swimming in highball song.
Her presence as lead singer of Bam Bam was groundbreaking. At a time when the rock scene was predominantly white and male, Tina stood out not only for her race and gender, but also for her stage presence and vocal skills. People weren't used to seeing a black woman front a rock band, and a lot of people weren't receptive to it, and she was often heckled by audience members. The lyrics sometimes tackled racism, sexual abuse, and feminism.
Second tool, in my head. I'm not fighting anymore. I'll practice faster.
In 1984, Bam Bam recorded their first EP at Reciprocal Recordings, where Nirvana later recorded demos. Bam Bam attracted so much attention around Seattle where they often performed, and toward other parts of the United States. It's even reported that Kurt Cobain served as a roadie for the band at one point. The band relocated to Europe in the late 1980s, hoping for bigger opportunities and a successful career. But those plans became big disappointments and resulted in deportation from London back to the States. So, why didn't Tina Bell and Bam Bam ever blow up in the mainstream if they were so respected? Talent managers and record labels just weren't willing to work with a rock band with a black woman as lead vocalist. In an interview, Scotty said, "Misogyny and racism played a huge role in holding back Tina Bell and Bam Bam. The fact we're even having this conversation supports the opinion. People back then expected a black girl to be hip-hop, a soul diva, or pop singer. Fronting a hard rock band was inconceivable to many people in the general public, it seemed, despite how brilliant she was. And she was." In addition to quiet racism, Tina experienced the not-so-subtle kind too. In Seattle and in San Francisco, Tina was oftenly taunted on stage. In Seattle, though, she seriously bashed two Nazis when they called her the N-word. She grabbed the mic stand and swung it around several times, then smashed both of them in the head, one pretty badly. It makes me shake with rage to this day. In fairness to Seattle, the rest of the crowd immediately pounced on those wanks and tossed them. Tina didn't seek pity for her and Bam Bam's Tina's relative lack of recognition. She just sought an understanding as to why people hadn't fully accepted her despite her contributions and accomplishments. She didn't want to believe race and gender played a big role in holding her back, but it did. It may not be the only reason she remains conspicuously obscure, but it had a big part in it." End quote. In the 90s, grunge music had taken off, and Bam Bam performed concerts with well-established bands like Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and Alice in Chains. The commercial explosion of grunge in the early 1990s, led by those bands, really overshadowed the earlier pioneers. Tina's work with Bam Bam did not receive the same level of recognition, and her influence was largely forgotten. Bam Bam eventually split up and went on with their lives, and Tina and Tommy got a divorce. Although the band did not achieve commercial success, their music was influential among their peers. But Tina spent the rest of her life struggling with depression and alcoholism as she faded into obscurity. In later years, she turned to spirituality and astrology, and was even writing music with her former groupmate Scotty with plans to reunite the band and work on a documentary. Tina's life was sadly cut short in October 2012. She died alone in her apartment in Las Vegas of cirrhosis, and her body wasn't discovered until weeks later. And by the time her loved ones were notified, all of her personal belongings that included music archives were already discarded. She was 55 years old. Despite her pivotal role, Tina Bell's contributions to grunge music have always been overlooked and written out of history. But Scotty promised her that he wouldn't rest until her place in music history was secured. Her former bandmates and her son TJ, who's an Oscar-winning filmmaker, have been doing their part in recent years in bringing her story to the forefront. There has been a growing acknowledgement of Tina's impact on the music scene. Journalists and music historians have begun to highlight her role in the development of grunge, recognizing her as a true trailblazer who helped pave the way for the genre's later success. Tina Bell's pioneering contributions challenge the conventional narratives of rock history, which have often marginalized the contributions of women and Black people. We'll chat next time on Cyber Chat with Crystal Alejandro, only on KeyTV.
Walk with the twirl, and I've flown all over the world. Take cities on my tape and proud. Just the life of a SoCal girl.